Advertising Week. What's up? Thank you guys. Thanks for keeping up the energy. Thanks for sticking with us on day 4 of Advertising Week. This is amazing. Thanks for joining this awesome panel. So you know that we're here to talk about driving culture, improving outcomes, and really talking about the value of diverse owned media. And so we know that media influences not only how we think, but how we process and interpret the world around us. It has a huge impact on society. And we know that Group Black is really focused on ensuring that we are representing underrepresented voices in the media landscape, driving economic inclusion for these voices. And that goes everywhere from making sure that we're providing access to capital for these businesses as it relates to putting them in front of big brands as we go out to pitches, to also providing the back-end infrastructure so that when we sell in these programs, you know, we're set up for success in executing those as well. So today, this discussion will really dive deeper into the importance of engaging with diverse owned media and really build on healthy and mutually beneficial partnerships as we move forward. So first, I'm going to kick it off and have our panel each introduce themselves as well as the awesome businesses that they founded. Start with you.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Regina Gwynn. I'm one of the co-founders of Black Women Talk Tech. We curate experiences specifically for Black and Brown tech entrepreneurs, and we run one of the largest technology conferences in the country called Roadmap to Billion. So happy to talk more about all things women in tech, entrepreneurship, and building billion-dollar businesses.
Well, you can clap for her.
I'll clap for myself.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ryan Johnson, the founder and CEO of Cxmmunity Media. Our mission is around future-proofing diversity in the video game industry. A few years ago, we learned that 83% of African-American youth play video games on a weekly basis, but only 4% of African-Americans work full-time in the video game industry. So one of our first tools of engagement was actually launching the first official esports and gaming league for HBCUs in North America. And we're now going into our 4th year of doing this and doing it with a number of brand partners. And since then, we're finding unique ways to not only bring more people into gaming, but also work across agencies and brands as they're building out their gaming strategies across the youth culture and youth marketing as well.
Awesome. Give it up for Ryan. That's heavy.
Yes, my name is Evan Marshall. I'm the CEO of Black Menswear. We are a cultural impact agency that champions Black and Brown stories through real, raw, and authentic messaging. We do that by understanding the return of investment through connectivity, and through that connectivity, we're able to leverage engagement within the community. One of the things that's really important to us, sorry, I know your name is, your organization is Cxmmunity, but we like to say you can't have community without connectivity and unity. So we do that through social, digital, experiential, and programmatic advertising solutions.
Awesome.
Hi, everyone. My name is Brigid Judge. I'm not the co-founders of Audiomob, but I'm stepping in for them today. Our incredible co-founders, Christian Facey and Wilfred Obeng, founded Audiomob a few years ago. And really, we're the pioneers behind in-game audio within mobile gaming. And what we've really found is that bringing the power of sound to such a wide reach medium worldwide can really bring a new impact, a new innovative way to bring, you know, audio identity into this world that we live in the way that we consume. And we've certainly found a lot of things about the medium and about the data behind all these mobile games and how people are engaging with them that go above and beyond, you know what culture is and how we think we define it. So really excited to be here today and stepping in for them. And thank you all for holding space for me in this community.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey everyone, my name is Coichy. I am the founder and CEO of Pod Digital Media. Pod Digital Media, we are the first and the largest multicultural podcast network in the country. We work with podcasters of color, primarily African Americans and Hispanics, and connecting them with blue chip advertisers. We started with 5 podcasters, now we work with well over 400 podcasters. We started with 0 advertisers, and now we work with well over 300 advertisers from Ford, Lexus, Toyota, McDonald's, American Express. You name it, we work with blue chip advertisers in bridging the gap between podcasters, content creators of color, and ensuring that they have access to those big brands so they can monetize their content. And as of last year, we've also expanded into experiential. where we're allowing brands to be part of key cultural moments, i.e. Art Basel, Super Bowl, All-Star, Fashion Week. And as of today, we actually just made the announcement. We launched Talk Up the Yard, which is live podcast activations at HBCU campuses during homecoming season. So that's a new platform, Evergreen, allowing brands to be part of the culture, the HBCU communities all throughout the year. So I'm very excited to be here and to talk about what we got going on.
Thanks, Gary. Big shout out to that program getting launched with Nike, and that was a partnership with Group Black and a great example of how we work together to
Absolutely.
really elevate how we show up, right?
Right.
Awesome. So the theme this week across our stage specifically has really been focused on a lot of the progress that's been made in the diverse owned media space, particularly over the past 3 years, but as well some of the challenges, right? We know that we've talked a couple of times about the hype is not as strong as it was maybe a few years ago. So would love to just hear from each of you as it relates to your specific companies and industries, some of the huge progress that you guys have seen over the past few years, as well as maybe some of the more recent challenges if you have seen any. So we'll start with you, Regina.
Sure. So definitely we've seen a softening, shall we say, of access to capital. You know, we talk a lot about, specifically in the tech industry, Black women receive less than 1% of venture capital. We saw a slight bump over 0.5% during, the George Floyd reckonings and things, but that's definitely gone right back down. And so we've also seen challenges around lawsuits and conversations around blocking and putting injunctions against getting capital to Black women entrepreneurs. And so, we recognize that the problems are here and they're very apparent, but the solutions are also here and the opportunities are also here. We are still seeing women get investment. Actually just spoke to a woman on Monday who has just inked a deal with the New York Public Library for her kids' education tech startup. And so, there's the focus on just being profitable and finding more ways to connect with corporate partners and connect with, kind of the supplier diversity in order to continue to build your business. So, we're excited to kind of create those kind of opportunities, match those entrepreneurs to each other, and then create experiences around that allows more people to hear those stories and to know more about these entrepreneurs.
Awesome.
And I always say, community media, ironically, we kind of found our way on accident into the media and advertising space. I think taking a step back, the reason why we're so intentional and excited about the work that we're doing is about 5 years ago in North America, high school esports became a thing in this country. So a lot of our local cities, counties, they have high school esports teams, just like you have basketball, football, baseball, track and field. The issue that we recognize being based in Atlanta is that starting when we said 83% of Black youth play, only 4% work, there were 0 African American schools in the state of Georgia that had any gaming programs at their campuses. Why that's important is because the same way that there's high school programs, there's now collegiate programs. So students are getting recruited, they're earning scholarships. These scholarships are transferring into job opportunities, all through the lens of competitive gaming. So when we launched the league specifically for HBCUs, when we say we started the league, there were 0 HBCUs at the time that had any gaming programs on their campuses. So now when we're saying in our league, we have over 40 universities that now have gaming programs that all have scholarships driven through this league. All of that is how we found ourselves into the advertising, media, and sponsorship space. So in our first year when we launched the season, we only launched with Verizon. We just started our season 4 about 4 or 5 weeks ago. We now have Verizon, Discover, Nike, Hot Pockets, and Mountain Dew are all poured into this environment. And the output and impact of that is that there's nearly been $1.5 million worth of scholarships that have also flowed back to students that are part of our league as well. So we see ourselves as like an advertising and engagement solution, but it's really this career to connectivity that we're looking through gaming. And because of our partnership with Twitch, we've reached about 50 million live viewers in our first 4 seasons as well. So we're really trying to find this through line of really using social good through media. And so for us, the excitement is the number of advertisers and brands that we're able to bring into this environment. And so that's just kind of where we are to date. So it is really exciting. We literally had a broadcast last night, and just being able to watch it and socialize this in a way that we haven't been able to do historically has just been really exciting.
I I think one of the things that's super interesting, Ryan, about what Cxmmunity does is you've started in the community. You've seen a need, and you are putting gaming programs in schools that are getting people jobs, and not just like these are really high-paying jobs. You're actually improving the racial wealth gap, that we're seeing, and I just that's really admirable that you were able to sort of start there and then move into the advertising space. It's really great, and we've done some cool programs with you guys with Walmart, and really awesome. Evan, we'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. He said, well, congrats on all the work that you're doing in terms of improving the racial wealth gap. That kind of lists like one of the stats I love to share is a lot of times looking at the term I hear all the time, and you guys get DE&I fatigue. Yeah. Right? And the reason we try to address that is, okay, you say DE&I fatigue, but you're looking at it, that's because you're looking at it at a very macro level from a brand point of view. A lot of times you got to look at it from an aspect of black buying power within this country is $1.4 trillion with the T. Yeah. Within that community, a lot of times don't realize there's 1.08 million black people in this country that are in the top 10% of income across all general market groups. So that audience alone within itself would be the 10th largest city in the United States. So that's bigger than Denver, that's bigger than Phoenix, that's bigger than Milwaukee, that's bigger than Cleveland. So an advertiser, you would never say, I'm not gonna do a whole campaign and don't want to speak to Cleveland. I'm not gonna do a campaign and don't want to speak to Phoenix. So within that, my example is like that is not a homogenous group. So within that audience needs to be spoken and connected with in a different way than you would somebody that might be lower affluent, or the person that lives in Atlanta is different than the black and brown person that grows up in Miami, that's different than the black and brown person that grows up in Chicago. So a lot of what we do is kind of focusing on doing data and cultural insights in terms of how do you speak to men specifically in a unique way within those individual markets. So that's why I say D&I fatigue is like, are you actually fatigued or you just don't want to do the work? Mm-hmm. So the fatigue makes you tired, and now when you're tired, you don't want to do the work, right? So that's how we kind of look at it as. So a lot of times we actually, do you want breadth or you want depth? So from our standpoint, you can come to us and get RFP, we can give you 40 million subscribers, but we'll give you a 98% net sentiment score. That's depth. Now you can go to Complex, which is DE&I adjacent, and give you 400 million followers, which gives you a 65% net sentiment score. That's breadth. They're not the same thing. Both are required and necessary, and you're speaking to the general market audience, but the strategies and approaches to both of those are different. So if you want more depth, that's how we've been able to kind of grow our market share, is kind of more focusing on a more targeted strategic approach.
Yeah, dimensionalizing those audiences is just so important. Yeah. Brigid, we'll turn it over to you.
It's really funny that you bring this up because I'm also, in this space today with Ryan, who lives in the gaming world, and Gary, who I used to buy media from like 10 years ago when he first started PDM. And I think the way I like to look, or like to kind of bucket out, or in my head think about the challenges that we're facing, and then also what are those solutions, is looking at the general like digital media landscape. Yeah. And you have these powerhouse audio players, right, who make up 85% of the market share. And you look at a solution like Audiomob, where we're providing mass reach and scale. I mean, one mobile game alone is maybe 2 or 3x the size of global Spotify. Mm-hmm. And we're not talking about just hitting one cohort, the cohorts, right? We're hitting everyone, all age demographics, all places, all different cultures and backgrounds are dialing into mobile games. And our goal was to bring the power of sound, to bring audio into the mix, because the way I like to think about audio is like the most basic form of audio was music. What do we all like to listen to? Music. Mm-hmm. Where did that first show up in media? The radio. The radio, what is it? Everyone listens to it. It's free. So audio has been so important in Christian and Wilfred's vision because it brings a new level of engagement with the people on the other side. And I think that we are getting there. And I think one of the challenges is that we're not necessarily being blocked by these bigger audio players, but we certainly have to fight 4 times harder to get in front of them. Yeah. And even though we might be a check of a box on someone's agenda, where we're trying to go is how can you innovate and think beyond, this is not just one community, this is everyone. Yeah. And we'll get to this hopefully eventually later, but like there's data to prove it, and I can prove it to you. So that's kind of where I think we're kind of struggling, but also, where the good ideas come from and where we can kind of build and grow from there. Yeah,
Yeah, on our end, we've certainly seen that D&I fatigue that everyone is referring to. It's certainly coming from those brands that were posturing. As soon as George Floyd happened, that was just placing the black box with no actionable next steps as to what's next on their end. But the brands that get it, right? And then what we've done is allocate our efforts towards those that get it because they understand the value that we bring. They understand the buyer of that $1.3 trillion that the AA community brings, right? So therefore, in those that only saw us as a D&I because we're minority owned and minority operated, I've all left, right?
Yeah.
So then now on our end, those that see us as a growth opportunity because our ability to provide reach and scale and cultural relevance, i.e. being seamlessly injected as part of a true cultural conversation with a Jalen Rose or a Kenny Burns or a Stephen A. Smith. And those I also see that want to be a part of key cultural moments, i.e. like an Art Basel with real talent from the black and brown communities. Those are the ones that we're allocating our efforts towards. For example, McDonald's is one of our biggest client, which we have a multi-year deal, multi-million dollars with. They get the first to market opportunities when we're launching programs like Talk Up the Yard, when we're launching programs like House of Pod, which is our experiential arm of the business. So those are the clients that we're focusing on. So we don't feel like we need to chase every single blue chip advertiser that's out there because then we're still very lean, right? Then we'll be spinning our wheels for the entire year. So what we do is we preach a message, understand who we are. One, we have the right talent. Two, the power of audio, right? And second, the power of the multicultural segment, African Americans, and of course the Hispanic segment, which is right behind us, which is and they're coming in hot and fast, right? So those clients that get it, those are the ones we're allocating our efforts towards, saying, look, they're not looking at us as a D&I bucket check that they need to just check the box. They're coming in with long-term investments, multi-year opportunities, or 3 to 6 months, 12 months campaign, not spots and dots, because that's not going to work for all communities. So that's how we've been able to see it. We don't see it necessarily as a challenge. We just see it as an opportunity to build bigger and better relationships with the brands that understand the value that we bring.
That's so true, and that kind of falls into the second piece of this panel today, which is we're not only just about driving culture, but it's about improving outcomes.
For sure.
And I think that focusing on those outcomes is a big way that we can overcome some of the challenge, some of the fatigue that you mentioned, to demonstrate that this isn't just good as a business, this is good for your business,
Correct.
right? And so, when we think about at Group Black, when we put together, strategies for programs and for campaigns, we're really hyper-focused on 3 things. We talk about driving reach, talk about driving relevance, and we're hyper-focused on measurable resonance, right? And so when we think about that, I'd love to understand from you guys why you think that, number one, how are you guys looking at those things, connecting the dots along that path to purchase, demonstrating that you are driving those outcomes, not just, driving the cultural connectivity, if you will, but also, why do you think that being diverse owned or telling stories from a diverse standpoint is just so important as it relates to driving that business growth? Gary, I'm going to start with you this time. You kind of mentioned some of these things already.
No, for sure. I think on our end is, when we first started, it was, we were challenged because audio when we first started, again, we are the first multicultural podcast network. When we started in 2018, the data set for audio as a whole was limited. It wasn't a Pod Digital Media Black-owned problem. It was an industry audio problem, right? But since then, we certainly have, the data, the analytics are much more robust now. So we're able to use that to our advantage. And there's a study that came out early in the year that the AA community now, on a monthly basis, the monthly users is at 43% versus the general market that's at 38%. That's a 5% increase, right? So which means Black folks are listening to podcasts, they're listening to music, they're streaming audio, and they're doing all of the things, right? Also, all your key influencers, your favorite broadcaster, your favorite actor, your favorite rapper are now creating podcast content. So now they're driving towards that medium. And we have the data sets to prove it. And additionally, we're also trying to teach. We don't feel like we should have, but we also are in the process of teaching that there's impressions and there's impact. Right? You mentioned it. What you can get from Black Menswear is completely different than what you can get from Complex. Right? The fact that Jalen Rose can tell a story in his podcast about where he gets his haircut and how he keeps his hairline fresh as a 51-year-old Black man. in a barbershop, that conversation doesn't stay in the barbershop. It's going to go beyond the barbershop because every single black man wants to keep their hairline intact until they're 51, right? So, but you can do it.
And beyond.
And beyond, right.
Don't
right?
stop there.
Right? So therefore, I think it's the ability for us to drive impact, and that impact with cultural relevance. That's what's gonna, and that brings brand resonance. That's what's actually going to move the needle, not necessarily getting one message and blasting it to, to 2 million people and thinking that's going to move the needle for it.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think during our presentations, whenever we do a media day and we're presenting to a new client as a pitch, those are the things that we want to talk about. One, we have the data sets. Two, we have the right content creators that can talk about your product. Three, they have the audience that believes in them, that see them as true influencers. And 4, they're going to have an impact. 5, that's going to lead to us driving business for you, right? So I think at the end is not necessarily, again, we don't want to compete with the Spotifys of the world. We're not competing with the iHearts of the world. That's not our focus. Our focus is driving culture and impact by working with the right content creators. That's going to move the needle for your business.
That's so, so true. Brigid, you kind of talked a little bit about this as well in terms of some of the amazing work that Audiomob is doing in this space. And we know measurement is super important to you guys. Would love to hear more from you there.
Yeah, it's very similar to Gary, because my background was in podcasts. I started on the agency side. I bought media from Gary. Perhaps maybe I was your first insertion order. Like, let's go. Maybe. And then I moved into actually measurement, into attribution, and trying to get a better understanding of how we can show business outcomes through the power of like technology. And then, right, I found my way here. And one of the things that I come back to, and when I work with Christian and Wilfred, is like, let's look at what we're really good at. And then let's look at the things that we know that we need to improve on, that we can create a longer term plan for. And what we do know, what we're really good at, where we see highest engagement rates, listen through rates, all the little rates right here and there, the percentages that you all want to see, is where we really resonate is like that brand awareness and consideration part of the funnel. And then how can we also work with the community, Group Black has been building out a wonderful measurement practice that we've been working really close on. We also kind of have something, in addition to that, and be able to push these, data points in front of, whoever we're working with, and especially those bigger brand awareness like QSR, CPG, education is huge. Just think about the demographic, like who's playing these mobile games. And so we've definitely felt like we sit really well in that space. For me, I'm interested in going after Gary's dollars, actually. The podcast advertisers, those typical like direct to consumer, how do we also get those folks in the conversation, into this different space where audio exists? And so when we take a look at those two areas, it also requires taking a huge leap of faith and knowing that you might fail, and there might be a campaign that doesn't perform in the way that you want to, but at least you have the results in front of you to then say, okay, now we know that we're really, really good at this, and maybe it's going to take a little bit of time to move in this way. That's kind of how we've been thinking about data, and especially, Wilfred, who comes from a background, he was, at Goldman Sachs and Google and Meta, and, doing like engineer, right? Yeah. Like it was founded on technology, and so, we in essence are a tech company, but we also happen to be owned, we are a Black-owned business, and you should know that. And you should also know that our medium is super powerful, and we can do a lot of the things that everyone else can do. And it's, that box, forget that box. Yeah. Let's move on. Yeah. Move forward.
Yeah.
Don't come for $1 now.
That's what I was thinking. I saw it Gary's face when he said he was coming for his dollars. He said, no, not
I'm
right
not
now.
going for Gary's dollars.
Just podcast dollars.
We need all the coins.
Evan, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I'll just kind of say, I think one of the things, I loved what both of them said in terms of taking the data, but I think a lot of times it's going that step further in terms of what story are you telling with that data? A lot of times when you're dealing with even just data analysts, sometimes they don't know how to craft the story without utilizing the numbers. Mm-hmm. So not just looking at the numbers and on the page, what is the discernment that you're taking, how are you guiding this conversation moving forward? So a lot of what we do in terms of like when we're doing outreach to brands, I love Gary's example in terms of like highlighting a few blue chip advertisers and focusing on developing and growing that business with them versus trying to chase a dollar. One way we do that a lot is we utilize partners that kind of give us past consumer shopping behavior. So then when we're doing our outreach, we can already say that our audience over indexes with the audience in this past by 2.5%. So that it's not a matter of, is it gonna resonate with them? No, they've shown past consumer shopping behavior and resonance with your brand. So if you're looking to do this, that's a greater affinity for that brand with our audience. One big thing on us is we try to drive, especially when you're doing paid social, paid influencer work, we're really big in trying to get organic reach and organic residents. So that's one of the things in terms of, are you establishing alignment up front before you're just going to getting in mass eyeballs in terms of the alignment. Second example of that is when you're doing paid social, oftentimes when you're relying on people outside of your community that doesn't understand your data set, they don't do proper targeting. Sadly enough, we get these opportunities at a time where we'll do a program, and now we've been able to build our business to where we can execute paid social advertising in-house. In the past, going back 2 years ago, we were not. One of the reasons we said we have to bring this in-house is because we had situations where our content, the influencers we work with content, they were doing whitelisting and paid amplification, and then you would get these negative net sentiment scores. For example, we did a program with a major retailer. It was a Black holiday gift guide. They went to market, they didn't have proper targeting. All the sentiment was, why has this gotta be Black owned? What about the white holiday gift guide? And it's like, it had nothing to do about it.
Not the white holiday gift.
I swear, it was literally,
so
and it was like, and that was all the sentiment because all the general market people were asking, why is this that? And I'm like, but that was not even on the content, that wasn't on the messaging, that wasn't on the consumer, that was on the targeting that agency put forth on the back end. That was the issue. So now we had to be able to develop that in-house. Now, you know what? If you want to do whitelisting, we can do whitelisting, but we have to operate it.
Yeah.
So then that also allows us to scale our business and also get a higher insertion order, and because now we're actually providing strategy, just creative and execution on the back end.
Yeah, and I know Ryan and Regina, you guys kind of have different business models, but as you think about, connecting the dots and partnering with brands and advertisers, how are you guys demonstrating that you're driving positive growth for them?
Yeah, so I think for us it's a little bit different, right? Because when I say we're starting these leagues, we're building out gaming in these communities, brands aren't coming to us because we had an existing audience. They're coming to us because they're building a program in real time as it's being shaped in reality. So for us, I think we're actually creating a lot of what success metrics and measurement looks like. Because analogy I always say is like, yes, we have a lot of the traditional sports sponsors, but the NBA's in year 75, we're in year 4.
Yeah.
So if you look at that in any type of comparable state, we will always be looked at as a failure because of the numbers just aren't there.
Yeah.
So for us, we're selling literally the real life stories, the real life impact. And what I'll say is like, we leave it to our media partners to figure out how to make the impressions work.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, the dollars are going towards scholarship pools. So we can say the story coming out of community is that Verizon's dollars went to this league, and now these students have started an LLC that have gone on to invest in X, Y, and Z, and we have those stories replicated time over time. So we're starting to use the media dollars as like earned PR and comm stories to really help drive organizational's ESG goals internally, because if we start from a impressions audience-led conversation, we're kind of pigeonholing ourselves.
Yeah.
So I think that's what's really exciting. Then also these companies are also now getting into gaming strategy for the first time. So what we say is that, these leagues are just starting, you are getting into gaming for the first time. So for the lens of multicultural audiences through community, Verizon's the first brand that they're seeing. Walmart's the first brand that they're seeing in any of these interactions. And you're talking about legacy impression. We're going off like the legacy impression of mine versus legacy impression of a data click.
Right.
And so that's what we're really leaning into, especially as we grow and continue to figure out what does the successful version of measurement look like through this lens of media and advertising through gaming and diversity.
Yeah.
And then if you think about experiences, so oftentimes a lot of the products that we work with our corporate partners on are in person, right? In-person events, digital events, which has changed dramatically since COVID. So if we think about what was a good benchmark or good metrics, in 2020, it's very different now in 2023. So when we think about how we are measuring and valuing impact, again, I echo Ryan's comments around, making sure that they understand the value of, those case studies, those individual stories of Black women entrepreneurs that are in fact, getting investment based off of the dollars that they've put into Black Women Talk Tech, that but they've gone on to raise, tens of millions of dollars for their Series A rounds and beyond, as well as even also back to Brigid's point, with awareness and recall. We definitely are running those surveys, and our audience and our community, they know, the technology partners that continue to invest in entrepreneurs. They're buying those products. They are CEOs. They're decision makers.
Yeah.
So they're buying Intuit QuickBooks. They're buying Microsoft, building their products on Azure and AWS and Google Cloud. And so, this idea that, we're able to see the impact and the ROI from our corporate partners, they're telling us that, that these programs and that these interactions are working. So we need to do more of it.
Yeah, that's perfect. And focusing in on that in providing those measurement infrastructures, and you talked about how Group Black is really helping even Black-owned businesses that may not necessarily have all of those measurement capabilities. When we're selling these programs into brands, that's a really important piece that we leverage our relationships and our partnerships to make sure that we are, again, not only setting our partners up for success, but demonstrating business success for the brands that we partner with. I'm being told we've got less than 5 minutes, and there's 2 more things that I just want us to talk about. So let's call this the lightning round portion of the panel. Number 1, just want to ask each of you guys, does Black-owned mean Black targeted? Why or why not? And then 2, what do you think what quick piece of advice would you give marketers looking to work with you guys? And I'll start with you, Gary.
On our end is the challenge that we faced in post George Floyd is that being the first, starting the first podcast network, out of nowhere all of these media entities were creating Black Podcast Network, right? So for us, what we had to educate the brands on, Black face doesn't mean Black owned. Yes. Right, so therefore you literally had to go.
Say that one more time.
Black face doesn't mean Black owned.
Okay, somebody clap for that.
So on our end, we literally had to challenge brands to say, look, if you want to work with them, do they have they minority certified? Did they go through the entire process? By the way, which is an extremely tedious
process. We put that in every deck now. We just got
it. And then we have to go through that process. Yeah. So therefore, now you're coming for those dollars that's supposed to be allocated towards a Black-owned media entity. By simply placing a Black face on your cover, then you're trying to come for the same dollars. So that's a challenge that we had to overcome. Certain brands certainly challenged the agencies to basically go through that process, make sure that every vendor was minority certified. Some didn't, but for the most part, we certainly were able to win a lot of those RFPs. And what was the second?
Quick piece of advice for a brand to work with you.
If you want to work with us, again, our value is in the content creators that we bring to the table that you typically would have access to. Also understanding we create these experiences that are culturally relevant, and we have the right content creators to go to an HBCU that have attended an HBCU that comes from the HBCU community.
So authenticity.
Right? Authenticity.
Yeah.
The power of that, and the power of audio plus the power of the multicultural audience equates success.
And the power of the people that think they're cool, because not only Black people like Jalen Rose, right?
Right, exactly.
All right, so Brigid, quickly, kind of tell us what you're thinking.
Oh, yeah. This one's kind of like the answer I think I'm trying to put together. I think they kind of come together in both of the questions. Is that the answer is no.
So Black-owned
does not mean Black targeted, and I myself, who's someone up here today who's not Black.
Really? Are you sure about that?
I had to take a moment over the last few days and over the last week since we've spoken and taking a look around, what's in my shower cabinet? What's in my shower? What are the things that I'm eating and consuming? What are the things that I enjoy? First and foremost, we are all consumers of products and services.
Yeah.
And after taking a reflection on that, I would say, of the 10 things, I have more than 10 things in my shower, but at least 6 of them, when I went actually online and looked, were owned by Black women.
Amazing.
And
round of applause for that.
So I don't know. So that, and it never even occurred to me, and how how silly, how stupid, how naive of me to think that, you know, this was even, for someone who came from media buying, that this was the only path forward.
Yeah.
Right? And
That's powerful.
so I think the advice I give is like, if you're a marketer out there and, you know, first and foremost, you are a consumer yourself. You buy things, you use things. Really take some time to understand what products are you actually buying and where did you learn about them. And I think from an Audiomob perspective, just from business wise, like we are truly spots and dots. Like we are media, we are digital media, and if you are an advertiser that is interested in honing in on a certain culture or not, there's a solution for it. Let's have the conversation. It's not a one size fits all. It's many sizes fits many pockets, many things. So that's what I hoping
that's
to
great. That's
take away
great.
today. Yeah. So
That's great.
Yeah.
And shout out to all those Black-owned businesses that
Yes.
need
Yeah.
to tell you that they're Black-owned.
Yeah.
Evan, does Black-owned mean Black-targeted? And what's a piece of advice for a marketer wanting to work with Black menswear?
I say kind of similar to what you kind of just said, like black owned does not mean black only, right? So because obviously with you owning that, you're not a black woman, but you still bought the product, right? So again, that even when they're doing the messaging, it's not only for these two wonderful women to buy the product, right?
Yeah.
So I would say that's the main thing we like to say. Quick tangible example, I love to use Bad Bunny as our pitches on there, because Bad Bunny is the biggest artist in the world. Most streamed, biggest selling concert. He's from Puerto Rico, doesn't even speak English. So if you think about it from that context of it, he's the biggest artist in the world and doesn't even speak English. That doesn't mean only Hispanic-speaking people are listening to him.
Yeah.
That means people that don't even
Parallel.
speak Spanish are dancing and listening and connecting with him in a moment. So that's how you got to think about advertising. It's cultural reverberation outside of it. So if you want to come work with us, think about it from that aspect. Do you really want cultural reverberation where you can actually get depth, or do you want to keep it high level and you just want a headline? Both are necessary, but as I said earlier, if you want the headline, you want the big press headline, might not be the best fit for you. But if you actually want cultural connectivity, we can help build a strategy for you up front. And that's the key thing. What's the strategy? Kind of coming back to it, I think a lot of times, and I'm sure kind of I love with your example with communities, like, hey, the media, y'all can figure that out. You're coming to us the strategy to how they actually engage with these students, with the HBCUs, right? Same thing with Gary. How do you actually want to engage with these podcast listeners? That's being strategic up front and not just saying, here's what we already want to do, execute this for us.
Yeah.
That's not strategic.
Yeah, and Ryan, I know that esports is obviously not only Black targeted, but you guys are definitely making an impact in Black environments, you know. So want to just kind of hear from your perspective, your thoughts around what do you think is the most important things for brands to understand when they want to come and work with community?
You know, I definitely say no to the general answer, but I say we're like regular sports, right? NBA, NFL, these are heavily represented African American competitors.
Yeah.
The audience is general market. We say the same thing for our gaming league. We have mainly 98% Black gamers, but we have a very general market. I say for us, advertisers and brands that work best with us are the ones that actually want to see their dollars go to work versus just go to amplification.
Yep.
So
Say that one more time. We heard a couple of a couple of
when their
snaps.
dollars go to work versus just amplification. I think again, media
Put
is
your
great.
dollars to work.
But if the campaigns are actually real, they're actually helping people and it's driven more than just a headline. If you actually can tie advertising dollars to community impact through the existing business units that exist inside of these corporations,
Yeah.
that's the type of work we're very interested in doing.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And Regina, last thing, I know Black Women Talk Tech is specifically designed to elevate Black women, but when we think about, you know, how brands could partner with you guys, tell me a little bit more than that, about that.
Absolutely. You know, when you empower a Black woman entrepreneur, you empower more than just her. She actually hires people, right?
Yep.
She buys things. She buys office space. She buys a new car. She buys a new house. She buys new insurance. She's impacting her school, her children, her communities, her church. So the halo effect that happens when you invest in an entrepreneur, and even, again, from an entrepreneurial perspective, it's hard, period, whether you're a woman, whether you're Black, whether you're white, any and all of those things. So the thing I would just kind of focus on for marketers is to understand that the entrepreneur you have to talk to her from a holistic perspective, but the impact that you get has this humongous ripple effect that's not just about business, but it's about the entire community and the impact that she creates when she, again, specifically on the jobs, because you know when you're able to hire more people, that allows completely new streams of career opportunity and development for the entire community.
Thank you so much. And I think it's so important when we talk about elevating entrepreneurs, elevating diverse-owned media. That's the whole reason that Group Black is here, has created this space, has put these amazing folks on this stage to share their stories with you guys here today. I just want to give a big round of applause to our entire panel today. And thank all of you guys for being interested and caring about how to drive culture forward and improve the outcomes through the elevation of diverse-owned media. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, done and done. You know, they didn't give me any